Well, this is probably the best question I've got all week, actually. So, yeah, what is the best way to heat the chicken house? So, if you go back to the original post, I had posted a picture of an oil heater and a surge protector and a long extension cord and said, here's the how to burn your chicken house to the ground starter kit. And so there was a couple folks that chimed in on maybe some suggested ways to keep your chicken house warm. You know what? I'm kind of at the extreme to the opposite direction. I don't think anything electrical really belongs. I shouldn't say not anything. There's a certain amount of things that you can get away with electrically in the chicken house, but any electrical heat source in the chicken house, highly unnecessary. So 100-watt light bulb, for example, I don't recommend a 100-watt light bulb. It chews through your power bill, for one. That's just a given. But the other reason why is that white light over the course of the night, when it's cool, when they need the heat, if that's the purpose of this, is causing stress because it's bright in the coop. I mean, you try to sleep with the light on, it's not easy, right? So don't recommend doing that. It negatively impacts your egg production and really doesn't do much in terms of providing heat. And you certainly don't get the cost benefit from heat versus egg production versus, with a $400 power bill you're going to get at the end of the month. So $100 or 100-watt light bulb, myth busted, not useful at all. So what about a red heat lamp? Well, so those aren't 100 watts, those are like 150 watts. The chickens can actually sleep with a little bit of red light. It's not that stressful on them. But again, it's the high wattage. And so suddenly you get a $400 power bill and your significant other is like, get rid of those chickens right now. You're not spending $400 a month on a heat lamp on your power bill just so you can have, $6 worth of eggs for free. It doesn't make any sense. So what about a radiant heater or a space heater or an infrared heater? Anything that's got the word heater in it, I'm not drinking that cup of tea. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid by any means. If it's got a filament, if it's got an element, if it's got anything that gets warm, you pose a significant fire risk, especially with chicken houses because they are so dusty and dirty. And on the times they're not dusty and dirty, what's the opposite end of that is that they're moist. And so it's just not a conducive environment for success when it comes to anything electrical. You find that your filaments or your elements where things get heated up, that's where all your dust settles. And it's just a perfect nucleation site for a structure fire. So not a good solution at all. So now that we've ruled out any kind of a light bulb or an actual heater of any sorts, here's where it gets good. So my recommendation, and this is what we do, is we do two things actually. No, we do three things. We have a really well insulated coop. That's the first thing. Doesn't matter whether you use a light bulb, you use a heater, or you use the methods that we use. An insulated coop that's draft free is a must. That's your baseline, that's your starting point. The second thing we do is we use the deep litter method. So the deep litter method, we put wood shavings in the base of the coop about a foot deep, and the chickens poop on the shavings, and we keep it stirred up throughout the winter and just keep adding more and more shavings. That soaks up the moisture, it keeps it oxygenated, and what happens when you add carbon and nitrogen, oxygen and moisture, you get composting. What does composting do? Composting generates heat. And we've done experiments. You can go back on my YouTube channel and you can look at those experiments and you'll see that I've even got that compost pile as high as 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, I could slow cook a ham in the compost pile inside the chicken house. The fantastic thing about this is that we have a winter storm roll through and the power goes out. Suddenly I don't have any environmental shock to my birds. That is one other negative thing that I didn't mention earlier, is that if you are reliant on a space heater or an oil heater or a heat lamp or a UV lamp or anything like that to generate heat, the minute you have a power outage and you don't have a backup generator in place, your bird's going to go from 25 to 30 below or whatever the external temperature is, right? From being cozy and warm. That's going to create quite a bit of stress. That's going to create quite a bit of shock. So not really a good solution, but the deep litter method does allow it to stay consistently warm as long as it's well managed for weeks at a time. And so you can actually get through a lot of those really cold spells, generate an incredible amount of heat. And if you manage it effectively, you don't have a ton of smell, and you don't have a ton of ammonia buildup in your coop either. So the third thing you can do is just get more chickens. Honestly, just get more chickens. The good rule of thumb is 2 square feet of roosting space per chicken. So they're shoulder to shoulder on the roosting bars. The other thing with the roosting bars too, I mean, just don't make them like tiny so that their feet got to wrap around, because if their feet got to wrap around, that's a really good way to get frostbitten toes, and then their toes fall off, and that creates stress, and that's not good for bird health. So a good flat 2x4 that they can sit on, and they can just hunch down, and they keep their toes warm with all their nice ruffled up chest feathers. That's perfect. If you keep them shoulder to shoulder, it's incredible how much heat those birds can throw off if you've got just the perfect amount of birds for your roosting space. So keep that in mind. Don't burn your chicken house down, and I hope you have some happy chicken keeping. Hope this answered the question too.